Happy Friday, everybody. This is Gun Violence This Week, Volume 1, Episode 6. It's November 13, 2020. So let's get to today's show for everyone. Let's say their names. Say their names. We've heard the names of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, but there's some other names that should be recognized as well. And that's what we do here on This Week in Gun Violence. We recognize people, victims who are not being recognized. So let's start out. We have Terrell Sims, Melvin Noble, and Erica Weems. Those three names we should know, but we probably won't hear very much about them. Let's start out with Terrell Sims. He's 11 years old from East Point, Georgia. He was over a friend's house decorating a tree for the friend's grandmother. On his way back home, he was shot and killed just around the corner from his house. That happened last week in East Point, Georgia. 11 years old. People just randomly shooting children. That's what it's come to now in our communities. Sad, but another victim of gun violence. Melvin Noble, you may have known him by his alias, Big Mo 3. He was a rapper from Dallas, Texas. He did some compilation work with Boosie Badass. He was a father of three. He was being followed by somebody on Interstate 35 in Texas. They pulled him over. Melvin got out the car, started running, but the assailant shot him 2 or 3 times and finally killed him. Young man, dead, father of 3, promising career ended. And Erica Weems, we told you about her last week from Akron, Ohio. Her brother was a good friend of LeBron James. He was also a basketball coach at Oakland University in Michigan. Erica was shot and killed in her home last week. And the reason why we bring up her name again this week is her reward was increased to $15,000. If you have anything, any information, anything that leads to an arrest, call the Akron Police at 330-375-2790. They need to get some resolution on that. I know LeBron is very involved in that one. Okay. And speaking of Akron, this year, did you know that Akron has the highest per capita murder rate in the entire country? Yes, Akron, Ohio, our neighbor to the south, has the highest murder rate per capita, 19.2 per 100,000 people. They lead the nation in murder this year. Not something to really be proud of, but we have to bring you the news. Also, Cleveland is having a record high this year. We're over 150 murders so far, with about 6 weeks left to go. So who knows how far we can go. But records that we don't want to break are being broken. And what does that mean to the community that's left there? Let's just say, for instance, that in between an area like 116th and Miles and Kinsman, that area right there, if you have 10 murders a year, every year for 10 years, you have 100 murders. So you have 100 victims, 100 families of victims. You have other people involved, friends, neighbors, all traumatized by gun violence. And the news channels aren't going to really broadcast their story because they're chasing other murders that are happening. So you have a whole neighborhood that's being traumatized. And you duplicate that by neighborhood, by neighborhood, by neighborhood throughout the city, throughout the state, throughout the country. And you see why we have so many mental health problems that can't be resolved. So when they start talking about defunding the police, maybe we should be thinking about reprioritizing the police. Get them out of the mental health business. Get them out of the domestic violence business and keep them concentrated into crime instead of what they're doing now. They're all over the place and they're at wit's end as well. And speaking of Akron, there was a 30-year-old man who killed his 30-year-old domestic partner in a murder-suicide. He also killed himself. First, he killed the woman. We don't have their names, and so we're not going to broadcast it. But he became involved in an argument with her while her 2-year-old son, which is his 2-year-old son as well, was there, shot and killed her. Then he called the police. And by the time the police arrived there, he had killed himself. So now you have a traumatized 2-year-old left on the scene with the mother and his father gone. And more victims of gun violence, that's all we chalk it up to. So who's left to pick up the pieces? The grandparents, friends, aunts, uncles, while they're still being traumatized as well. So that's our, let's say their name segment. So we're going to add that to it because we have so many people that are victims of gun violence and their names are not even broadcast probably more than once on radio or TV. So let's go to gun statistics, which of course are always brought to you by Gun Violence Archives. They have the latest and we get it straight from them, so we believe it is gospel. Okay, gun violence totals for this week. We are currently sitting at 37,403 gun violence victims. Last week we were at 36,514. So we've increased about another 800, 900 victims totally in 1 week. That's a lot of people. Homicide victims. We were at 15,988. We're at 16,415. So we've increased that by about 500, give or take a few. Suicide, we were at 20,526. We're at 20,988. So another 400 suicide victims who use guns to end their lives in a tragic way. Just too much. We have to find some solutions. I don't know any other society can afford to lose this many people and not even give it a second thought. Children between 0 and 11, we were at 249 and we're at 251. So it was a good week for the babies. Only 2 of them passed away through gun violence. Teenagers 12 to 17, we were at 883. We're up to 902, so another 20 or so teenagers were victims of gun violence just this week. And getting back to just one day, November 12th, which was only yesterday. Here are the victims throughout the country. We don't give them the names, just the city and how many people were gun violence victims. Portsmouth, Virginia, 1. West Helena, Arkansas, 1. Lubbock, Texas, 1. Potawatomi, New York, 1. Burlington, Iowa, 1. St. Louis, Missouri, 2. Baltimore, 1. Memphis, 2. Tampa, 2 killed and 4 injured. So we're going to try to bring you an update on that. That seems like it was really tragic. Washington, D.C., 1. Indianapolis, Indiana, 2. Dayton, 1. Cincinnati, 1. Milwaukee, 1. Chicago, 3. Philadelphia, 2. Marion, South Carolina, 1. Fayetteville and Chew, that's in North Carolina, and Williamton, 1. All in one day. That's more than England or Canada have pretty much in a whole year. And that's enough of that. Can we get to a point where we can do something about gun violence? Hopefully with a new group of people coming into the presidential office, we can start pursuing some gun legislation that actually works for these modern times. We need to get in touch with the presidential elect team of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and make our thoughts known to them. And if you have any thoughts out there on how to make our show more dominant, more dynamite, to reach more people, please put your comments at the end, or if you have an email, send it directly to us here at romecorp17@gmail. That's ROME Corp, CORP 17@gmail. And as usual, we end the show until we get resolution. Once again, there's our brother Wilbert McCormick, a 62-year-old father and grandfather who was shot down around the corner from his house getting some exercise. We need resolution, people. So come forward. Please come forward. If you need any more information, call the Cleveland Police and get the whole story. We're going to have an update on this in the weeks to come. Hopefully, we're going to finally get somewhere. So it's going to be a quick show because we're still excited about the election. It finally ended today. They called Georgia and North Carolina. So all the states are in. Salute to our new president, Joe Biden. And y'all have a safe weekend and protect all the ones that you love, because I'm going to. So long, and see you next week.